Early decision on the Keystone Pipeline. A provision in the bill forces him to either approve the project connecting Canadian oil fields with Texas refineries or explain why it's not in the nation's best interest. He's got 60 days to do it. American jobs and energy independence is on the line. Joining me now, John Hofmeister, former Shell CEO and the author of the book, Why We Hate the Oil Companies. John, welcome back to the show. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Jerry. Nice to be back.
Okay, so I want to ask you about this idea of the pipeline. The president has said he doesn't like it. He thinks it's a bad idea. And now there's going to be a time crunch on him. What is he going to do you think?
I think he's going to pass. I don't think he's going to follow the law. I don't think he's going to either approve it or disapprove it. I think he's going to find a rationale in between that says, you know, we're not ready. Congress can't tell the executive branch under executive branch administration rules what I must or must not do. He wouldn't be the first president not to follow a law. There could be a legal challenge that pops up. He could challenge the constitutionality of it, for example. And so I think he really wants to wait until this is past the 2012 election so he doesn't cut off his donations from environmental supporters, and so he doesn't completely alienate labor and the American people by guaranteeing higher gasoline prices.
But, John, I mean, come on. At the end of the day, what's going to happen is the Canadians could go somewhere else. They'd be well within their rights to sell that oil to the Chinese. And, you know, I know they're our neighbors and we have a good relationship, but at the end of the day, they aren't bound and beholden to us.
No, that's the risk we face. I actually believe that the Canadians would be wise to, begin the Asian process, to begin considering oil to Asia, because that might knock some common sense into some elected officials or appointed officials who are fighting this pipeline. It's nonsense to fight this pipeline because this is North American bounty. This is North American resources. And the Canadians don't owe us anything, Jerry, on this. We owe ourselves, we Americans owe ourselves the freedom to take the risk associated with this huge supply of oil just north of our border that could help us and help the Canadians at the same time be economically stronger, be more secure. But yet we have people out there who say we shouldn't do this. I really have an issue with people who are so arrogant in their point of view that they think Americans should pay through the nose for their transportation fuels rather than do a deal with our next-door neighbors and thereby import less Middle Eastern oil so that we have more national security. I don't know what's with these people, Jerry,
John,
but I still don't think the president...
It's not just energy for transportation. It's also energy to fuel our offices, to fuel our homes. When you talk about coal, I think the Obama administration is pretty clearly on record trying to discontinue it, downsize it, phase it out. And new EPA rules on coal. Let me give you an example of the kind of economic impact they're going to have here. 68 coal-fired plants will be threatened with shutting down. $11 billion in compliance costs to these new rules in 2016. Now, we've been covering this really all week. It's astonishing the kind of effort they're making on behalf of these rules, which at the end of the day, I don't really see the true benefit to implementing them. They're talking about mercury, but it really sounds to me like what they're worried about is CO2 levels.
There's a social arrogance taking place, in my opinion, that says we know better than the rest of America. We know best, and we are going to let our dogma, our political dogma, determine the future of the American economy. It's grossly unfair to price people away from electricity that they can afford towards renewable or other sources that they can't afford unless taxpayers subsidize it for some political agenda. And that's what it is, Jerry. It's a political agenda that Americans, and I spend 7 days a week talking about the facts of energy, not the politics of energy, so more and more people understand how they are being misled and misinformed or disinformed by their own leadership. It's grossly unfair, and they need to hear an alternative point of view. And you're asking the right questions.
Well, you know what's interesting, of course, is natural gas is becoming ever more important, and it's yet another factor that's really edging out coal, is the production of this inexpensive energy source that's really getting a lot of topspin from areas like Pennsylvania, the Midwest, lots of development of natural gas throughout that region. Do you think at the end of the day that natural gas will not just overtake coal, but become the main source of energy for America?
I think it will in the next 20 to 30 years, but it'll take that long, and here's why. Coal will remain an incredibly important source of electrons. It's almost 50% of today's electrons. With the 68 plants shutting down, we're going to have reliability problems. We're going to have brownouts and blackouts because of the administration's decision, because the staff of FERC said we would have reliability problems, but the commissioners of FERC denied putting the staff report into the final analysis that went to the EPA. So when those blackouts and brownouts hit, the American people are going to be beside themselves with outrage over their own government, and there will be a stay. There will have to be a stay on these closures, because what the EPA has done is they've determined a regulation without any fit of compatibility with the demands of the electrical system. So on a hot July night, when New York City goes out, and the people are upset, and then it's again the next night and the next night in a heat wave because the reliability of the grid is just not there, there's going to be a very rapid rethink of this regulation.
Let me tell you, New Yorkers are not that patient. There'll be no rethink. There'll be action. Listen, John, thanks for coming in tonight. Fascinating conversation. Merry Christmas to you and your family, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay.